Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining. We're going to wait another 30 seconds before we begin the presentation. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Luke from the Product Strategy team here at Google. Today, I'm joined by Many from SoftWatch, who will go into some details about the SoftWatch program that is available for you to use today. Google has licensed SoftWatch for partners to use with existing customers and prospects to help them better understand their Microsoft Office usage. This data should help in discussions with increasing Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides adoption, as well as help our partners kick off license optimization programs for our customers. There are a limited number of free licenses, so sign up today. You've probably seen some of the press that's mentioned. One of the articles just recently was in Forbes magazine, Forbes online newsletter, about the SoftWatch program. So please take a look at the recent news. There's some great posts. We'd like you to be a part of that. So I'll post a link to the Hangouts chat that you can sign up for some of these free licenses. So please sign up today. This information is also available on the Google Enterprise Connect community. If you have any questions during this presentation, please use the Hangouts on-air question feature located on the left side of the Hangouts panel. And with that, I'll hand it over to Meni, who will go into a little bit of details with SoftWatch. Meni?
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. So a few words about us. I know we have some of our board members here on the call as well listening in. So I'll be presenting today. My name is Meni Milstein. I'm the CTO. As Luke mentioned, we have time for questions at the end, so please feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. We know we had great success in the last call, so this one's definitely going to be better. And with this, I'm going to share my screen with you guys and start the demo. So the product that we're going to talk about today is called Cloudit, and we're going to talk about the offering that we have with Google as well, for partners and for Googlers as well. So the whole solution is basically an assessment service that is based around the product called Cloudit. And what this service does, it enables enterprises to make informed decisions when they want to move to Google Apps. But this is not something that you can introduce only to people considering Google Apps. This is something that's going to be very good for existing customers who maybe just integrated Gmail into their company and just want to improve their existing usage of Google Apps. So this is something to improve both for prospects but also for existing customers as well. And we also provide customers with a plan that really should assess them with the transition, be their whether they're new customers or existing customers. It doesn't really matter. The plan is good for any case that we've come across until today. The solution is aimed at uncovering the real usage levels of MS Office, or should I say the real low usage levels of MS Office. And what we do is we basically assess the way people work with the applications inside the organization. So we look at what they do inside MS Office applications. For existing customers, we also look at what they do inside Google Apps, and we give them a plan that they can basically create their own plan based on the information that we have collected from their own organization. So they don't need to base their decisions on benchmarks or industry standards. They can actually look at their own data to understand the usage levels and then plan the transition based on those usage levels. We then measure the success of the Google Apps transition project, and that should enable a very good case of decommissioning MS Office licenses, because at the end of the day, the more they use Google Apps, the less they need MS Office. During this demo, I'm going to talk a little bit about activities and a bit about usage segmentation, which is kind of our thing. And when I talk about activities, I mean the creation, the viewing, and editing of documents and presentations and spreadsheets. So this is basically any kind of activity that a user may have with either one of the Office applications. When I talk about usage segmentation, usually we divide users into two main groups, and that is the light users group and the heavy users group. And essentially what we mean is that the more light you are, or the lighter you are, the easier it is going to be for you to move to Google Apps. And the heavier you use the product, the higher the chances of you requiring some kind of complex functionality that may not exist. And what we're trying to prove is that the majority of the organization is going to be comprised of very light users that can very easily be moved to the cloud. And we do this by segmenting the light users into additional subgroups that really emphasize the level of lightness that people actually use MS Office applications. And I can tell you guys, we really surprise customers by the low levels of usage. We've had a few meetings with customers at the beginning of the product where we had face-to-face meetings, and people were really shocked by their low numbers of usage. So this is a very clear and good case where low and light usage comes in handy. The offerings that we have are divided into three main products, and even though today we only talk about Cloudit, there are additional 2 steps for the entire optimization process, as we call it. And besides Cloudit, we have Optimize It, which is step number 2, and that enables companies who have undergone step number 1 to really understand how they can move to Google, plan the move, and execute the move as well, all the while monitoring the way the adoption goes, optimizing their existing investment in the Microsoft Office, which means that they can reutilize existing licenses and then buy less from Microsoft and eventually decommission the MS licenses as well. And step number 3, which is called Optimize It Premium, really unleashes the entire power of Optimize It and of SoftWatch by allowing them to do that for all software applications and not just Microsoft and Google. So now we're going to talk about Cloud It, which is step number 1, and probably at the end of this conversation you guys are going to understand why we pinpoint that specific step in particular. So the meaning of that step is to uncover the real usage levels of MS Office and Google Apps and to really help the customer understand what kind of potential value this has for them. But the process that we're talking about is basically something that's going to take a very short period of time, about 4 weeks of data collection. And the deliverables that customers can expect to have are a very thorough analysis of what people do inside MS Office applications and inside Google applications as well. Then they're going to be able to get a projection of their potential license savings inside Microsoft. So they're going to be able to see where they are now and where they can potentially be should they decide to move to Google, including real numbers of dollar values for these assessments and assumptions. And we believe this is essential information that they need to enhance the ROI model and to make a go, no-go decision. In addition to that, they will get a methodology paper from us, which will really help them with the transition plan, regardless of whether or not they're going to continue with us to step number 2 and step number 3. During the past, I would say, year and a half, we've had quite a few customers working between us and Google, and here are some of them. The point here is to show you guys that this is a product that really fits any kind of company, no matter what size they are. The only limit that we impose is that the customer be bigger than 200 seats, but anything above that we've had. I mean, we've had customers from any kind of vertical, ranging from 200-300 seats up to 50, 60, even 70,000 seats. We've had them all. And all around the board, we were able to show very good numbers of low MS Office usage. The feedback that we got from customers was that this did help them remove the blindness that they had in terms of the real MS Office usage, which is really what they needed at the end of the day to make a decision whether or not it's going to be easy for them to move to apps, to Google Apps, and doable at all. And customers were expecting to have tools and methodologies to do that, and they were very happy that finally there was something that was there to help them. So this is another good feedback that we got. As I mentioned, it was very important to us to make it clear to customers that they have very high numbers of low users, of light users. And we have found that over 80% of users in these companies that we have tested so far were found to be light users that were very easily moved to Google Apps. And finally, we got good feedbacks from customers regarding Microsoft decommissioning. They achieved great savings in there, and we were really happy to see these results. As far as the cooperation we have with Google so far is, it's based on the fact that Google is sponsoring this service, and I'm going to go into that in a minute. But basically what Google believes is that we will enable you as a Google partner, a Google reseller, or even a Google internal sales guy to introduce a new concept, to revive old or dead conversations with customers, to really shed some light on what customers really want to see. And we believe, and Google believes that as well, that you guys can turn this into something standard inside your selling process, something like a needs assessment that you guys can turn into something that you do as a standard for your customers. And we believe with Google that this will help you become a trusted advisor, because as friendly as we are with Google, we are still not Google, which means that we don't present information the way Google wants us to present it. We present reality. And the fact of the matter is that reality so far is leaning towards Google, because Google are presenting a much more financially sane model to work with for large companies that don't use Office as much as they think. So this almost always shows good numbers for Google sales reps. We also believe that this will help you divert the conversation away from where Microsoft wants it to be, because up until now, you guys can probably relate to what I'm about to tell you. You would approach a customer and offer apps as a service, but then they would say, but we're using MS Office, and some of the functionality is missing. What about legacy? We need to open old files, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what this is doing is that essentially what Microsoft were doing is they were pushing the conversation towards functions that may not exist. And what we're doing is we're pushing the conversation back to usage levels. Because if you have more than 80% of your company using the products very lightly, if at all, you don't need to talk about the functions that they use. You need to talk about the big group, which is the non-users. So we divert away the conversation from where Microsoft wants it to be, and that really helps the sales cycle all in all. During the last summit that Google had a few months ago, I think it was a couple of months ago, this slide was presented to partners, and what this showed was a portion of our benchmark, which really shows you how many light users we found across the 3 major Office applications. And Google did mention that we had dozens of customers in 2013 and also in 2014. Again, over 80% of cases were found to be, 80% of users were found to be light users in the cases that we have had. And this was really something that helped them quantify the savings in Microsoft licensing. As far as prospects were concerned, we were able to show good ROI, accelerate the entire cycle, because sometimes partner would come to us and say, but what if this slows down the process? So we say, on the contrary, because this is something that would take about 4 weeks for you guys to accomplish, it should be kind of a knockout. You can take something that can take months to do, and you push the entire thing to about 4 weeks of data gathering, and then a simple phone call to show them all this information, and you accelerate the cycle like that. And this also expanded the pipeline and helped increase conversion, because it helped us bring more customers into Google Apps, and this is something that they were really happy to see. As far as existing customers were concerned, we were able to monitor and extend the existing usage for existing customers and bring in new users inside existing customers. And this also helped to drive renewals, and the entire experience for existing customers really helped them get out of Office. And again, as I mentioned, Google mentioned that this entire service is sponsored by them during 2014.
So I just wanted to chime in there, Manny. I just wanted to quick chime in and say that, as you see, the partners, looking at that, there's a great benchmark there, and we really appreciate using that in the discussion. But don't stop there. Definitely request the usage of SoftWatch for your customers and your prospects, so you can go beyond that benchmark to have something really tailored for that team. That's where we really see the value. So it's a great benchmark, and we're glad that prospects and customers see value in that. But you, as the partner community, we're hoping that you can drive additional discussion with a customized assessment, and that's what Google has paid for. And just one quick reminder to the folks that are joining: there's a questions panel that's available to the right of your Hangout. If you go ahead and click the Q&A icon on the left-hand side, you can leave additional questions, and we'll answer those at the end. Sorry to interrupt, Manny, but please continue.
Thanks, Luke. As Luke mentioned, this is a pretty comprehensive benchmark, but we do see some different results that are interesting for customers to see. So yeah, as Luke mentioned, we do encourage customers to run assessments on their own systems to get this information. It feels different when it comes in from your own system, so we do recommend that. As I mentioned, we do have an agreement with Google where they sponsor this entirely during 2014, so please, guys, go ahead and introduce this to your prospects and your existing customers. And the way we work with you guys is that you work with one of our guys from our team by filling out a form that Luke is going to give you the link to. And then we schedule an online session to introduce a solution with the partner and the customer. And we hope that by the 3rd or 4th call, the partner will be able to do that process on his own. But we kind of train you while we present this to customers. So please go ahead and introduce that to prospects and customers. Schedule online sessions with us, and we will discuss the entire process with your customers. About the process itself, as I said, it's very quick. The only thing we ask customers to do is deploy an agent via any kind of software distribution tool that they may have. And after that, they don't have to do any changes to their network at all. It's a completely push-out solution. So once it's there on the machine, we wait for about 4 weeks for the data to be gathered. We then set up a call with the customer to conduct an assessment review, and then we provide that customer on that specific call. It takes about an hour, not more than that, an in-depth analysis, an ROI model, and the ability to make a go, no-go decision. It's that simple, and they really don't have to do anything above that. And just to sum everything up, here are a few slides that show you the kind of information that your customers are going to get. So first off, we show them exactly how many minutes per day their average user uses Office for. And I think in this example, it was about 8 minutes for Excel, about 10 minutes for Word, and about a couple of minutes for PowerPoint. They were really shocked. They were expecting to see hours here, but it was just simple minutes. Then we segment the users, as I mentioned, to four different groups, three light users and then one red, which is the heavy users. And the light ones are, as you see from the top, the pale green, the ones who don't even open the applications. Then you have the ones who are just using them for viewing purposes. And already you have about 50% of the organization. Look at the size over there. And then you have a big chunk of dark green here representing the ones who are light editors. And then you have the ones who are heavy editors. And the way we work is we set up a threshold. And that threshold is 1 hour a week. That's the default threshold. And what we're saying is that if you're editing a document, you're interactively using one of your Excel sheets or Word documents or PowerPoint presentations for more than 1 hour a week interactively, then you become a heavy user or a heavy editor. But as long as you're below that threshold, you're considered to be a light editor. And that threshold is something we just suggest based on our experience. But at the end of the day, the user can go ahead and change that threshold as they go. They can change it even post-assessment if they want to see how the numbers change. But these are the default values, and these are the ones that we base our benchmarks on. And as you can see, we can present the information based on different groups. We can show light and heavy usage per group, so that really helps big customers transform or transition parts of their organization to Google Apps, and then start with the ones who are the light editors. And that will create something that we call the ripple effect inside the company, where more and more people use Google Apps and the rest of the company just goes along. And that helps tackle the departments that have heavy usage levels, because they see that the rest of the organization is going there, and that's the way they're going to go with them. And if you want to dive in deeper into each one of the departments and see exactly for each one of the users what they're doing, this gives you a very good idea of the raw data, the level of rawness of data that we collect. And as you can see here, we collect information about the active time, which is the number of hours that the user is running the application. We collect information about the focus time, which is the number of hours that the user is looking at the application, which means it's in front on his front window. And we collect the number of hours that the user is interactive with the application. I can tell you a secret. The only one that matters is this green column over here, because that is the real usage. And we're the only company in the world that looks at the mouse and the keyboard without keylogging, without endangering anything, just looking at Booleanic features like were you or were you not using your keyboard in that specific moment in time on that specific applications. And by doing that, we can give you the exact level of interactiveness for each one of the users individually, or for each one of the groups as something that's presented in your Active Directory or with a CSV file or anything like that. So they can go ahead and do anything they want inside the system, change thresholds, but these numbers are what we're going to collect every time, and that is the most important part, which is the interactive level of the user with the application. Now, after we present this data, including the apps information as well, because what you saw earlier was Office, and this one is Google Apps, we'll be able to give the customer a very clear table. And this is what we like to end the assessment the process with, that shows the customer both where he is now, which is the current situation. You have this is a list of versions you have. This is the numbers of users per version. You can go ahead and put your price in here, and if the customer wants, they can input their price, and that gives them the total dollar value that they spend on these applications per licensing period. We also look at standalone applications, if they have any, and we also give them a sneak peek on a few additional Microsoft applications, kind of to start up their appetite to look at Optimize It and Optimize It Premium, but they can get that without any payment here and see the dollar value that they spend on Microsoft Office applications. We then give them the projection, which means if you guys were to follow our advice, this is the number of users that we actually see. Only 5 people here justified having a suite. Out of 323, only 5. And this is a real customer. It's a real data from a real customer. This is because only 5 people were actually using more than 2 Office applications. Because based on their pricing structure, if you're just using 1 or 2 applications, it's cheaper to buy a standalone license for you. So maybe you're just using Excel. Buy Excel if you're using it heavily and you really need it. You don't need the entire suite. It helps drive you into Google Apps. Let's just get you Excel and get you off of the Microsoft suite. And then what you see is an increase, a small increase from 17 to 65 of the standalone licenses. This is to compensate for the guys up here who are using just one of these applications heavily. As you can see, most of them are on Excel here. But at the end of the day, because of the way it's priced, we were able to bring down customer John Doe here from $180,000 per licensing period to just about $17,500. So that's more than 90% savings just on that small, very, very small, by the way, about 350 machines in this customer. In that small case, we're able to bring down 90% savings, and you can just imagine what the executives in that company were thinking. It was a no-brainer. They moved, and they took the entire company with them, and it wasn't a problem, and they really enjoyed the process. I'm not going to talk about the additional adoption steps, but we do have more tools to provide the customers during the assessment and after as well, because if they want to move to Google Apps, they're going to need to monitor, and this is something that we give them as well. But I do like to leave time for questions. So Luke, if you want to take back the mic and tell me if anybody asked anything.
Sure, Manny. The first question that we have is, what needs to be installed on each client PC during one of these deployments? And do you have any security hurdles that you've encountered in the past?
Well, this agent needs to be installed on any one of the machines that you want to monitor. So any machine in the network where there's a user interactive with that machine running a process, that agent needs to be there. It could be a desktop, it could be a server, it could be a terminal server, it could be a Citrix. The same package will fit all these different machines back there. And for the purpose of the assessment, we really need that to exist on any kind of desktop in the system, because the more information we collect, the more accurate we are, because after all, this is a statistical model. As far as security is concerned, we get a lot of questions about security, and for that we've prepared a lot of documentation, including the documents that really specify what exactly is written inside each one of the XMLs that are being sent out to our servers. But mainly the questions are we encrypted? And the answer is naturally yes, we are. We don't only transmit encrypted, we also store it encrypted because we take it very seriously. Customers are happy to find that we're not using Google services to store the information, because we're very, very unbiased. We are using Amazon service to store everything, and we take advantage of all the Amazon security features. And naturally, every customer is divided into their own kind of compartment on our databases, with completely separate databases, so they're happy to hear that as well.
Okay, great answer. There's been a few questions now that people are asking about how do you get access as a reseller or partner, and what is the cost? So Google has purchased licenses for SoftWatch for partners and resellers to use. So if you're a partner and reseller today, you can use these licenses that are complimentary for your customers and prospects, because Google has paid for them already. So to get to that access, all you have to do is go to the GEC, and there's a landing page for SoftWatch, and you can see that under the Google News section. I will also send a message to all participants in this Hangout with a direct link to that. So it is in the GEC, the Google Enterprise Connect community, in the Partners section. So again, available for you as a reseller or partner today, and the cost is free. So moving on to another technical question. Can you detect who uses macros? That's the question for me.
We don't have the ability to look inside the application and understand what type of usage they did inside. This is for several reasons. When we started development, we wanted to do that, but we found that the deeper you dig in, the heavier the product becomes, and it becomes unstable and it interferes with the user's interactivity with the machine. But the more interesting fact that we have found is that statistically, it didn't matter to find specific functions inside the machine, because 80% of the users were using it for such a small time that they didn't have time to operate macros. It's a matter of using it for like a minute or two. And this is why we say that 80% of the company can very easily be moved to Google Apps, because they use it so lightly that the chances of them using some kind of function like that are so slim, and our level of accuracy was above 98%. So for a few cases we've had a mistake here and there, but in most cases it just didn't make any sense to even try to find out if they're using macros or any other pivot table or functions that may not exist in Google and can exist in Microsoft. So to answer your question, the whole part of addressing specific functions is just irrelevant based on the way we monitor things, and it's very, very accurate.
Okay, thank you. One other follow-up question was in regards to, does SoftWatch work with XenApp or Citrix? If they're using Microsoft Word or Excel through Citrix, are you still able to monitor that usage?
Yes. The way the agents work is that even if you throw it onto a Windows-based machine, though, with Citrix or with XenApps or any kind of virtualization software or remote access software, the agent is smart enough to understand if there's multiple users logged into the same machine, and then divide information reported back to our servers from these machines. So it doesn't matter if it's on a single desktop or a laptop or a robust server running 200, 300, 400 users. It's going to be able to detect any kind of process that you're running. So if you're logged on to your machine, operating a process on a remote machine, and the agent exists on that remote machine, then we're going to detect that the process that we're interested in is running over there, and it's going to report data back to us with your username. So we will be able to know exactly on which machine you are working. And we even have customers today that have such a robust usage of Citrix that we divide and split the reports for them for just Citrix usage and the desktop application usage, because it matters to them. So we do give a lot of detailed information on that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question we have is around, do you see this as being a tool used more as for getting people that have a blended environment of Google or Microsoft to convert all to Google, or more for new clients that have not yet made the decision to go Google? And that question's by Wiley. And I would say that the answer is for both. Google has seen some great successes both for prospects and for existing customers, and we encourage you to use it for both. We're looking for existing customers, we're really looking to help build some case studies that we can even use with prospects. So obviously, those case studies are helpful for the current customer that's going through the assessment, but also when we find a similar prospect in the future, we can show them this case study, at least to start the conversation, saying that yes, we've seen customers like you before, and we see this SoftWatch as being valuable, and there are customers that have gone Google that are similar to you and have seen value in this assessment. So the answer to that would be you're more than welcome to use them for renewals situations with existing customers or with prospects as well. And then another technical question, are there any issues with using SoftWatch outside of the US? I'll pass that one to Mehdi.
Technically, no. You can use it anywhere you want. I do know that in Europe, in some cases, they do mention and bring up the issues of privacy because they want to know that we don't collect private information, and for that we have prepared answers because we already know all the questions that they have in these parts of Europe because of the fact that we don't track the information inside the documents, we don't look at keylogging or anything like that. Usually there aren't any problems. In some extreme cases, maybe we're going to go to some kind of a legal department that's going to test out some of our sample files and say then they're going to give us the green light. But all in all, there's no technical issues. And as far as data is concerned, again, there's no problem because we're dispersed around the world with servers with Amazon, so the reporting as well is very, very light.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question came up around how long the implementation takes and how tedious the process is. I'll take the first piece in terms of the implementation time. The actual implementation can vary in terms of time, but the assessment length can last between 4 and 6 weeks. It's up to the discussion with the customer or the prospect. So in terms of the process, I'll let Mehdi kind of touch on a little bit of the details, but again, this is something that we can go into more details when you have a customer or prospect that's interested. But Mehdi, if you want to touch on it briefly in terms of how tedious is the process and how long do you usually see implementations take?
Well, take the most tedious process and think about the opposite, because what we did is we took all these steps that usually happen and got rid of them. What you get from us after a call with a customer is basically a package. It contains an executable file for the installation and an uninstaller to get rid of it if you want. And all you have to do is just go ahead and double-click it. You can then even deploy it remotely with a /s for silent installation. It doesn't require a restart. Does not require any kind of network changes, any kind of proxy, firewalls, IDSs, antiviruses, nothing. It's completely and 100% automatic. You just need to get it out there. And once that's done, as Luke mentioned, it takes about 4 weeks. We've had small customers, 200-300 seats, take them a couple weeks to throw it out there. We've had huge customers doing it overnight. It really depends on the customer and their approach to it. And I think that you guys as partners should drive this process to go to the most, the one who is in charge of the deployment process, so the ones who are on top. And the higher you go, the faster it goes. So I mean, that's my 2 cents there. It's really up to the customer.
And one other piece on that, in terms of what your customers and prospects are looking for. It's really the aftermath that we see the partners really adding a lot of value. So, of course, we're going to run this assessment. It'll be 4 to 6 weeks, but it's probably going to kick off a program that says, hey, let's actually start reducing our Microsoft Office usage, and that takes time and effort, and that's where partners can get really involved and spend the longer times with these customers. The next question that we have is around, are there any baselines of typical usage profiles that we can compare our clients' results to? And I'll let Manny answer that as well.
Well, I think the most obvious one is the benchmark that we have, and I think that every assessment summary that I do, I always like to take the information that the customer has and then compare that to the benchmark, because it's either the customer is in shock by the low levels of usage and says, well, something went wrong, it doesn't make any sense, and then we show them that the rest of the industry does that, or they have some kind of weird usage in one of the applications, and we want to show them that you guys are very, very strange with Excel, and then when they know that, and then they see that data in the results, they can really relate to that, and then they say, well, we have proof that this is actually something that was done on our data. So either way, it really is something that we always like to compare results. Obviously, it's anonymous. Obviously, people don't know what results we're comparing them to. We just have general benchmarks for industries and verticals, and the more we have, the more accurate they are. But we usually show them information about the industry, about benchmarks, compare them to others, talk about past processes, and that really helps the process. It really soothes the customer.
Okay, and just a few more questions here. Will we be provided access to the slide deck? That answer is we have customized slide decks for partners and for prospects as well, actually, that are available on the GEC. And if you go to the SoftWatch page, you will see those. And I'll make sure if they haven't been posted yet, they will be posted today. So you'll have access to a slide deck that is similar to the one that we showed today. And also there's a question around if a partner would like access to try SoftWatch, themselves before showing it to a client. What process would they take? We do have the form for that, where you can sign up your partner. You can sign up as a partner and just request a series of 10 licenses for your individual partner, and we'd be happy to have an individual walkthrough. So Manny's been really helpful in doing these large Hangouts on air with questions and answers, but if you have several customers that are interested but you'd like to try it first, we're more than happy to do a one-on-one call with you as a partner to show you a little bit more functionality and to walk through the demo after you've gone through kind of a mini assessment yourself. So that is an option as well. Again, all of that is available in the form. Please fill it out either on behalf of your customer or prospect, or if you'd like access yourself, just fill it out on behalf of you as a partner. I'll wait another quick minute to see if there's any other questions that come in late, but it looks like we've answered all of them. Yep, it appears that we have. If any questions do come in later, please feel free to comment on the GEC posts, and we've been monitoring those as well, so we can answer your questions there. Really, I'd like to thank Manny for his time and effort to put this presentation together. Really appreciate it, Manny, and thank you very much for the partners that have been able to join today. Please use SoftWatch today. Request those accesses to those licenses. They are available for a limited time, so don't hesitate on using them. We'd like to get as many prospects and customers using SoftWatch as we can this quarter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.